CB radio. I've just connected it up to the aerial and the power, and I'm all ready to chat. Really excited, ready to go. Wrong. Have you forgotten one important thing? Have you forgotten to check your SWR, your standing wave ratio of your aerial, to make sure that your aerial is tuned to your CB radio, and when you transmit, all of your power goes out of your aerial and off to the station you're talking to. If you don't check your SWR, as soon as you key up, a percentage of your power is coming back into your radio and can damage it. Now, by checking your SWR, what you need is a SWR meter. Now, these come in various sizes. You can get huge, great ones about the size of this power pack or whatever. Regardless of what people tell you, a little SWR meter like this, I think they're about £13–15. That's all you need. And to go with that, you will need what's called a patch cable, which is basically a length of CB coax which has got two PL259 connectors on the end, and this goes in the back of your CB radio, this goes in the back of your SWR meter, and it's basically how you connect the SWR meter to your CB radio to do your checking. So that's the two bits you need: SWR meter and patch cable. If you're handy with soldering, you can make your own up. You can buy yourself a couple of two PL259 plugs, get yourself a length of cable, solder the plugs on, and you've made one. But it's up to you. I mean, if you're just starting out, it's probably just best to buy one. They're only £3 or something like that. They're not a lot. Then, you know, as the years go on, you can get a new SWR meter. This section on the left hand side here with this meter here, that is this meter here. But this additional one, it's got a meter here where I can check the power, the actual amount of watts I'm going out, and this one does 10 and 100, which is selectable, but I don't really need that. It's just that I happen to get this one in something I brought, so that's the one I normally use. However, when we all first started out back in the early 80s, end of the 70s, we were all using these, and these are fine. People will say to you need a more expensive one, but at the end of the day, as long as you check your SWR and it's under sort of 1.8, that's my guideline, you're fine. So let's have a look how we set this up and how we check the SWR on an aerial. So on the back of the meter are two connections. They're not labelled here, see? No identification at all, so you wouldn't know what they are. But if you look at the front here, this side says X-mitter, this side says ANT. ANT means your antenna lead plugs in that side. This side means your patch cable goes in here and goes to the X-mitter. Always check you've got it round the right way. As a golden rule, if you're looking at any SWR meter, it does tend to be that your aerial coax always plugs in on the right hand one. That's the general rule, but always check first. You don't want to wire it up the wrong way round, but that's a good, remember that rule. Normally, as you're looking at the front of it here, your aerial lead will go on the right hand side, and then your loop will go round to your rig, which you normally have on the left hand side. Okay, so let's put the coax into here. So as I said, the connection for the X-mitter normally goes on the left hand side, so that screws into there like so. Then this goes in the back of the set. Let me just do that. Unfortunately, my aerial lead doesn't reach very far, so I'm going to have to move this back over here and then connect that. Connect that into there. So let me do that now. Okay, so we turn the radio on, turn it to channel 20, so you're midway between your 40 channels, and then select onto what's called FWD on this slide switch here, because you'll have FWD and ref. You always go onto FWD first, and then what you do is you take the microphone, key up, and you adjust this red needle here until it's on the set point on the scale, like it is at the end there. Once you've done that, make sure it's on the end, you D-key, you move on to ref and you key up, and this will give you the SWR reading. It's the top scale, so we've got 1, 1.5, 2, 3, then it goes into the red. You want to be as near to 1 on the left hand side as you can be. The further towards the right hand side you are, the more power you've actually got coming back into the radio. So let me key up now. You can see the needle hardly moves. I've got a SWR practically there of 1 to 1. So that's perfect. You can't ask for any more than that. Now, when you've done that on channel 20, you've also got channel 1 and channel 40 that you want to check. If you're struggling with SWR, so let's have a look what we got on channel 40. So we go to forward first. See, it's not quite at the end. So it is now. D key, back to ref. Got hardly any movement at all, so that's still 1 to 1. We go on to channel 1, back to forward again. That's still in the same place. So we've got 1, 2, 3 there. Now, okay, you might not find this on Google, etc., but I'll give you a little tip as well. So, okay, remember, if your SWR is higher on channel 40 than on channel 1, you need to shorten the width of the aerial. If your SWR is higher on channel 1 than it is on channel 40, then you need to lengthen your aerial. There's a couple of tips there. You need to write that down and take that with you when you're actually tuning your aerials in, because that will give you a good guide and help you get the lowest SWR that you can get. So okay, let's have a look at a couple of aerials now and see how we tune them in, because there's bottom loaded aerials and top loaded aerials. And I don't know which ones you are going to be potentially using to alter the SWR. Okay, so we've got two aerials here. We've got a base loaded aerial, which means the coil is at the base, and then you've basically just got a metal whip going right the way to the top of the aerial. This one here is what's called a top loaded aerial, because at the top, this is where you make the adjustment for the SWR. So it's top loaded, top SWR adjustment, bottom loaded, this is where you make the adjustment at the bottom of the aerial. So let's have a look how we would adjust these. So for this one, which is the top loaded aerial, when I said to you, depending on which way round it is, you either lengthen or shorten the width. Do you remember what I was saying about channel 1 SWR being higher than channel 40 and channel 40, and you would either lengthen or reduce? So if you're lengthening the width, you're lifting this up, like so, and making it longer. Now, how much do you move it each time? You literally move it 1 or potentially 2 mil at a time. That's all you move it. I would start moving it at 2 millimeters at a time. So you just want to loosen it off, move it a tiny bit, lock it. Check it again, loosen it off, move it a tiny bit, lock it. Loosen it off, move it again. You get the idea. So that's all you're doing on that one. That's the top loaded one, okay? On the base loaded one, you're doing exactly the same thing, but these ones normally have what are called grub screws, these little Allen key screws. So you're going to take an Allen key, undo them two, move the aerial up a bit, lock it down, check your SWR. If it's not that quite good, undo it, move it up, lock it down. If you've gone the other way, you're going to undo it, move it down a tiny bit, lock it down, and that's the adjustment that you make. Now you can run with your SMAR meter in line. What I mean by in line is have it permanently connected when you're transmitting. You can do that if you want, but it does take a very small amount of your transmitted power. So once you've checked your SWR, you can disconnect your SWR meter, put it in the cupboard and forget about it. Put your aerial lead direct into the back of the radio and you're away, but you must check your SWR. Now, periodically, I would say probably every 3 months, doesn't hurt to put the SWR meter back in, check your SWR, take it back out again. But if you move your aerial at all, or change your radio, or you do anything to your setup, before you put it back on and transmit again, check your SWR. You may have altered something and it could have knocked your SWR out. So just remember that rule. Hope you found that useful, but as I say, when you buy a CB radio and you buy an aerial, 9 times out of 10, people do not know that you need to use a SWR meter, and they forget the most important bit. And then when their radios eventually die, because they've blown the final transistors due to all the power coming back in the radio, they're scratching your head, and at that point, that's when they normally find out they need a SWR meter. When they go to a technician, he said, "Oh, did you run it with high SWR?" Oh, I don't know what that is. We all did it when I first started and got my first radio. I didn't know you needed a SWR meter. No one told me, so I didn't get one. Luckily, I didn't blow my radio up. When I found out, I tuned it, and luckily my SWR was okay. But we all start somewhere. So, hope you found that useful. Any comments, any questions, please post below. Happy to answer them for you. But remember, check that SWR.